2017, the bull market in crypto was retail. What's great is retail is already in this trade, and we're going to get to front run Wall Street. That never happens. Wall Street front runs the individual. This time, the little guy gets his opportunity to front run Wall Street. You know, how really monumental this shift is that's going on, because it's huge, and we can all make money from it, more importantly. The whole system is changing to this new internet of value. I think real estate will be tokenized, and this is something great. So right now on 7 Mile Beach in the Cayman Islands is expensive apartments. The average citizen of the Cayman Islands can't afford to buy them. They're sold to Americans and some of the wealthy families here, and Canadians and Brits and stuff. Now, you could tokenize it, which means you can have the recorded ownership, your fractional ownership, that trades on an exchange. So I can sell my $5,000 investment in a $10 million condo to you instantaneously. What that means is you're a pension fund in the Cayman Islands looking after the general population. You can share in these projects that ordinary people couldn't do. So let's say you're a real estate developer. Well, you can now sell real estate, high-end real estate, to individuals, because you're not selling one thing, you're not creating a REIT, you're creating something that's instantly tradable. It was kind of like timeshare was, but this is a real ownership, recorded ownership, that I own a share of the property that you've just built. And I can trade it with somebody else instantaneously for money. Look, there is a secular shift going on. I grew up in the UK, and there was a massive societal shift, much like we're seeing in the US now, back in about 79, 80, 81. And what happened was we lost the steel industry, the shipbuilding industry, the coal mine industry, and the tin mining industry all in one go. And that never came back. And guess what? It's pretty difficult to retrain a 55-year-old steel worker into the services economy, for example. So it creates structural, rigid unemployment for extended periods of time. And those cities took a long time to come back. Many of them never came back. So I think the same is true. I mean, realistically, shopping malls, that game's finished. There'll be some in certain routes, but it's not really going to be there. So I think there's a structural shift coming, and my guess is you'll end up buying shopping mall, knocking them down and building apartments, because need apartments because this massive millennial population can't afford, there's not enough supply, they need to get into stuff. We need cheaper, high quality apartments for that huge population, because they're still having to live with their parents, they're still in the renter economy. There's a bunch of things that can be done. So my guess is we'll be ripping up shopping malls and changing them to other things. Now, in terms of office space, who knows? The jury's out. And in stores in, let's say, New York City, I think the jury's out. I think young people will find that there's lower rents and they can create their own businesses and they can start the entrepreneurial cycle again. You know, changing some awful chain store like Staples and turning it into an artisan baker's, and somebody's in control of their own income, great. I think that's coming because rents will come down because the chain stores won't be there any longer. There is no point. But artisan stuff, yes. Shopping malls, no. And apartments, of course. Look, I think this cryptocurrency trend overall is bigger than people can yet get their heads around. It's currently, the whole space is about a $1 trillion asset. My guess is we'll be talking about a $20 trillion asset plus in the next 10 years. So, okay, we don't get many of those opportunities. The other long forgotten one is emerging markets, because the US has dominated so much this last cycle that nobody invests in emerging markets anymore. India has a phenomenal demographic, high savings rate, low debts. It's completely the opposite of the US or Europe in terms of how it looks structurally. The probability of making money in India over the next 10 years, extremely high. And you know, if you look at the relative valuation of emerging markets, they're very cheap. So people have forgotten about these things, but my guess, if we come back in 5 years' time and have this conversation, everyone's going to be talking about the bets that they've got in India and some of these other big emerging market countries.